just, clearing up.
Right back to bronchitis.
How are you?
Got the tie. Yeah, I got all my Christmas ties. Well, you acquire them over the years, and then you got to figure out when to wear them. So December comes my month. That's when I do my Christmas ties. Awesome.
I think our turn. How many already did mine? Is it?
Yeah. You gotta find my place card.
Good morning.
Morning.
I now call to order today's meeting of the Board of Supervisors of the University of Louisiana System. Carol, if you would, please call the roll.
Mr. James Carter, Dr. Jimmy Clark,
Here.
Dr. John Condos, Mr. Edward Crawford,
Here.
Ms. Lola Donahoe,
Present.
Dr. Pamela Egan,
Present.
Mr. Thomas Kitchen,
Here.
Ms. Rachel Laudiger,
Here.
Ms. Mimi Methvin,
Here.
Mr. Sean Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Al Perkins,
Here.
Ms. Elizabeth Pierre,
Here.
Mr. Virgil Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Mark Romero,
Here.
Ms. Christine Russell,
Here.
Mr. Joe Salter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Carol. As a courtesy, please turn off your cell phones or other electronic devices. Be reminded that anyone wishing to make a public comment on a particular agenda item must complete a public comment card located on the table at the entrance and turn it into to a UL staff member. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Salter, would you please lead us in an invocation?
Yes, sir.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have today together as members of this board. And Lord, I would ask that as we deliberate and that the decisions that we make are in the best interest, Lord, of the students of our state and the citizens of our state. I thank you, Lord, for each person who serves on this board. I thank you for our staff. Thank you for President Henderson. Ask, Lord, that you would bless in a special way our governor and other elected officials as they take their offices in January. Ask, Lord, that you would guide and direct them and that you do the same for us. Lord, as we complete a time of Thanksgiving, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. And as we look forward to the Christmas season, we thank you, Lord, for the greatest gift, Lord, ever given, your Son. We thank you, Lord, for the salvation that's possible through trusting in him. Ask that you'd forgive us for the ways that we've sinned against you, and we thank you for your many, many blessings. For Christ's sake, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're honored to have a special guest with us this morning, and I'd like to give Dr. Henderson the floor to introduce our Governor, John Bell Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're thrilled to welcome Governor Edwards to our meeting today. It was 2 years ago we were gathered in Natchitoches for the same meeting, and the governor was with us at the annual Northwestern State University Christmas Gala. Now, unfortunately, this year there'll be less entertainment unless Maggio has something planned that we don't know about. Wait a few minutes. Won't be any Christmas performances today, but if you have a chance to get to Natchitoches in December, it's a magical place. Despite that, Governor, we sit here with immense gratitude for your leadership the past 4 years. We look forward to your continued support of higher education in your second term. We are deeply grateful that your commitment to higher ed stemmed a decade-long disinvestment in higher education, and led to last year the first significant investment in our work, because we think our work is essential to the future of the state of Louisiana. We thank you for bringing Commissioner Kim Hunter-Reid back to Louisiana and the Board of Regents as we work with them on a master plan that is sets audacious goals for all of higher education. And we believe we can play a major role in that. But frankly, we just thank you for your steadfast leadership for the state of Louisiana, your friendship to higher education, and most importantly, your vision for the students that we jointly serve. Thank you very much for being here.
Mr. President, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all the board members and everybody who's here today. I'm sorry I didn't make it to the reception last night, but President Dice, thank you very much for the invitation to be there. I am pleased to be here with you today.
It's on.
Before I get started on the prepared comments, I understand two of the football teams of the LSU system, I'm sorry, Louisiana system, will be on the road with playoff games and going to the far north. Southeastern will be in Montana, and I think Nichols will be up in South Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Well,
Even
both
further.
of those actually won't win the- I suspect. But I wish them a lot of luck, and I know, being from Tangipahoa Parish, I can tell you there's a lot of excitement around there about the Lions football team, and I can only assume the same thing is happening around Memphis as well. So I wish them the best of luck. Look, we're in a different, and I think a far better place than where we were 40 years ago, because we were able to stabilize the state of Louisiana and our budget, and
Well, Governor, we greatly appreciate your time and your commitment to higher education. And I want to tell you, in October, I got to visit all 9 universities and spoke to literally thousands of faculty. And I know they appreciate your commitment to higher education. The biggest challenge we have is ensuring that we have the faculty necessary to provide world-class education. And your commitment will ensure that we can do that. We appreciate that.
And look, sometimes we don't talk about it, but, and I'm glad you mentioned it. We have to have the ability to attract and retain top quality faculty if we're going to deliver top quality education. And normally we talk about that in the K through 12 arena, which is incredibly important. And you all know that we for the first time in 10 years, gave a teacher pay raise K through 12, not just teachers, but support workers as well. I'm encouraging you all to find ways to make sure that you're able to better pay your faculty members too. Because the same rules apply to you all. You have to be able to attract and retain the very best faculty that we can get in order to deliver the best education. And that's one of the reasons that I want to make sure that we're increasing our state general fund commitment to higher education. You can probably find other ways within your system to do that as well. But it is something that you all ought to be focused on to make sure that we're successful.
Thank you. Folks, if there's no questions for the governor, I know that the PR folks really would love to get a group picture with you, Governor, if you have time for that.
I certainly do.
So Cammie, if you would direct where you want us to be.
Sitting on top.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you look through that?
I did.
It doesn't ever work. Get a fine.
If I don't fill it out.
Yeah, you best make sure, check with Carol and see, or I tell you who it was, that, you know, the gentleman that's in charge of our audit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, one of those.
Bruce, is that name?
Who sells them?
No,
Okay.
that other guy.
Oh, Charles Wentz? Charles?
Yeah,
Left
Charles.
hander.
Check with him, because he's the one, maybe I'm the only delinquent one. I don't know.
What is it?
Probably have one.
Oh, I don't ever claim my.
And Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the first investment be on a new microphone for the front desk. We'll work on that as well.
I think ours is working.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. And it's what a great way to start off our meeting, and looking forward to the next 4 years with the governor. We certainly have been blessed by his leadership and vision and commitment to higher education. And I think all of us heard a clear message that it's going to get much better over the next 4 years. Going forward, I ask that we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our October 24th board meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Salter, second by Dr. Egan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Today, we're meeting as a committee of the whole, and everyone can vote on all items. As has been our practice, the chairs of the committees will conduct the business of each particular committee. Are there any questions respective to our plans? May I have a motion to dispense with committee deliberations and meet as a committee of the whole? Moved by Liz Pierre, second by Sean Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Donahoe, if you would, please start with our Academic and Student Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrero. We have 10 items on the Academic and Student Affairs Committee agenda today. Each member previously received executive summaries and associated information on these items. Dr. Janine Kahn, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, will provide the report. Dr. Kahn?
Thank you, Ms. Donahoe. Can you all hear me okay?
No.
Not very well.
What about now?
Here.
Better.
Just nice.
Let me do a little, well, my children would say that they prefer the lower, non-working microphone for my voice, but there you go. Well, good morning. Thank you, Ms. Donahoe, and good morning to you, Chair Romero, President Henderson, and members of the board. We do have 10 academic items for your consideration, and I'll quickly walk through each. Of course, please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you might have on any of the proposed items. So let me go ahead and move forward with agenda items E1 and E2, which are both from Grambling State University. E1 is a request to award an honorary Doctor of Laws to our very own Mr. James Carter. The university would like to recognize Mr. Carter for his professional accomplishments as well as for his staunch support of public higher education here in the state of Louisiana. E2 is a request to enter into an MOU with Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine. As we all know, VCOM is a private four-year osteopathic medical school that awards the Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine, and they're currently under construction on the ULM campus, and we're excited to have them here in the state of Louisiana. Grambling would like to enter into an MOU with VCOM in order to establish a very clear pathway between qualified Grambling students into being accepted into the VCOM program. Agenda items E3 and E4 pertain to Louisiana Tech University. E3 is a request to offer the following undergraduate certificates: one in Geographic Information Science, Information Assurance and Cybersecurity Management, Lean Six Sigma, Criminal Psychology, Audiology, and Communication and Media Studies. Undergraduate certificates, which must be composed of at least 18 hours or more, provide students with foundational and upper-level courses in a particular area of focus. Louisiana Tech's proposed 6 undergraduate certificates all make use of existing courses that have been packaged with a particular focus or skill set in mind.
Sir, question?
Yes.
Dr. Kahn, when I read the write-up, it says that these are the first undergraduate certificates at Louisiana Tech. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me a sense as to how many we have system-wide and what other institutions have them?
Absolutely. This is a very new endeavor. Dr. Clark, about a year and a half ago, the Board of Regents allowed universities to go ahead and offer undergraduate certificates. It was a really long debate. Our universities wanted to provide students with an opportunity to earn a credential, to either supplement what they're learning in a particular area and help supplement with another area to help them either pursuing graduate work or in a particular profession or in the workforce. Of course, there are those that might just want that undergraduate certificate and come and achieve that and maybe use it as an on-ramp later on for a baccalaureate degree. Back about a year ago, UNO pursued, and this board granted approval of a handful of undergraduate certificates, and then we've had a few to follow. So I'd say overall, from a higher ed perspective, we probably have about 15 to 20 that have just been approved, and so we'll be monitoring their success, but it is all very relatively new. It allows also universities to be very nimble in addressing workforce demand and need because you're collecting courses that are already offered, so it's at no expense to the university typically, and you're packaging them up in a meaningful way, and so that student just doesn't have random 4 transcripts, courses on their transcript. They actually have a certificate of value and meaning where the courses have been collected to have that student learn a different area, both at the upper graduate and the lower, the upper level and the lower level areas.
So I heard you say UNO. Are there others outside of UNO?
Absolutely. We have LSU. We have other members, McNeese, other of our 9-member institutions that offer them as
LSU?
well. I'm sorry?
LSU?
Yes, LSU, Southern,
okay.
yes, yeah. It's
But
across the whole management.
Across this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't authorize LSUs.
No, we don't, but the Board of Regents has approved some
I
of
just wanted to
that
be sure I was in
institution.
the right room here.
And you'll be seeing more coming forward because this is a pathway that the universities have really embraced
Sure.
because it has value in so many ways.
No, I commend you and the staff and others for going this route. I think that it certainly is something that we need to be paying particular attention to. And likewise, I think we have to be making sure that when the students receive it, that they're transportable, that they do have value in the marketplace, and that they continue to serve the needs, for the students. So all good.
Absolutely. Any other questions about that item? All right, we'll move forward with E4, which is also pertains to Louisiana Tech University, and this is a request to offer a graduate certificate in industrial organizational psychology. This is a 12-credit-hour program at the graduate level that will produce completers well-versed in organizational psychology that will be helpful to those seeking or who hold supervisory or management positions in a particular industry. Agenda items E5 through E8 all relate to McNeese State University. E5 is a request to terminate the Master of Education in Educational Leadership, and E6 is a request for termination of the Education Specialist in Educational Leadership. Both programs have seen a significant decrease in enrollment over the course of many years. These students in the program, 9 in the master's program and 2 in the ED specialist program, will be provided the opportunity to be taught out of the program, so they will take care of those that are currently in the pipeline. And those that wish to pursue such a credential in the future, both programs are offered by other state institutions here in Louisiana, so that pathway will still be open for others. E7 is a request for approval of a transfer agreement with Lamar State College Orange, which is a 2-year public college located in Texas. Such an agreement will outline the transfer of courses between the 2 institutions. And E8 is a request of McNeese to offer a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. McNeese has offered chemical engineering as a concentration within the Bachelor of Science in Engineering when all concentrations in that discipline were combined into one degree in 1994 as a result of a low completer review. The university would like to convert the existing concentration, which is very viable. It graduated 38 students last academic year, and they want to convert that into a standalone program. A similar action was approved by this board for mechanical engineering about a year ago. This change would better reflect the degree earned by the graduate, and that would also make them very competitive in the marketplace. Right now, the graduate has the Bachelor of Engineering, but then they have to go on and explain that it's in chemical engineering, and it's the same type of curriculum as those Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, so it'll help solidify that understanding. Agenda item E9 is a request from Nicholls State University to offer an honorary doctorate of humane letters to Senator Norby Chabert. The university would like to recognize Senator Chabert, a Nicholls alum, for his years of public service, as well as his business accomplishments and contributions to the community. While board bylaw excludes elected officials in office from receiving an honorary degree, Senator Chabert will complete his service to the state of Louisiana in January, and he is term limited. With that in mind, the university will present the honorary degree at their December commencement exercises, and the effective date of the honorary degree will be January 14th, the day after his incumbent is sworn in. And lastly, agenda item E10 is a request from the University of New Orleans to offer a Bachelor of Science in Professional Pilot. This board approved the letter of intent about a year ago, with subsequent approval granted by the Board of Regents. And so now what you're considering is approval of the program in and of itself. The program would prepare students for a career in the field of aviation and would be offered in collaboration with the New Orleans Aerial Tours and Flight Company. This company was founded in 2003, and the academy is an approved Part 141 flight training school by the FAA. The Flight Academy would provide all practical courses with faculty credentials evaluated by the University of New Orleans and faculty courses vetted through the university's Courses and Curriculum Committee. The proposed program will be fully supported, with students paying a contracted rate for the entire program, and that contracted rate would be split between the university and their partner. Currently, Louisiana Tech is the only institution in the state of Louisiana that offers a baccalaureate program in this field. The number of qualified applicants for Louisiana Tech's program far exceeds the 30 slots that they have available in the program. And for example, they interviewed 190 qualified students last year for only 30 slots, and UNO's program would help to bridge the gap from the need of pilots, both cargo and professional pilot and individual travel, as well as go ahead and provide these students with an opportunity to pursue a degree that is not available here in the state. And Ms. Donahoe, that concludes all of the items for your consideration.
Chair Donahoe, if I could, one point on the pilot program at UNO, Louisiana Tech, correct me if I'm wrong, was instrumental
Yes, sir.
in delivering expertise and helping to design that program. And I just wanted to thank President Geis for this example of interinstitutional collaboration.
Jordan, who manages the program at Louisiana Tech, went far beyond when the letter of intent phase to really work closely with UNO and the folks that are dealing with the pilot program there in ensuring that it was just exceptional. And so we certainly do appreciate that cooperation. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, Dr. Kahn. Are there any comments or clarifications from the board? Any comments or clarifications from the public? If not, I'd like to recommend that we approve the items E1 through E10. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Mimi. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. And next on the item is athletics.
Thank you, Ms. Donahoe. I'll ask that Mr. Murphy address items to be presented to the athletic committee.
We have 3 items on the athletics agenda that are all consent agenda. On the athletic committee that are all consent agenda, I'm sorry. Mr. Bruce Janae will provide an overview of the consent items by campus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murphy. Item F1 is from McNeese, approval to update their policy permitted under the NCAA bylaw relating to supplemental pay for coaches. The policy permits non-recurring supplemental pay to coaches for team participation in postseason games and extraordinary team or individual achievements. Payments are funded through private funds that are deposited and paid through the university. Item F2 is from University of Louisiana Monroe, approval of a contract with Charles Olson, who's Director of Volleyball, head women's indoor volleyball coach. And item F3 is from the University of Louisiana Lafayette. They are requesting authorization for our system president to execute amendments to coaching contracts. The university has existing agreement with several coaches for its football team, and they have begun negotiating amendments with several coaches who have the potential to be highly recruited by other schools following the conclusion of a very successful football season. ULL went 10-2. Although an understanding hasn't been reached on certain terms, such as base salaries, the details of the contracts have not yet been finalized. Within your board folder, I have specific details. Because the contracts are not yet final, UL Lafayette is requesting that the board delegate its authority to the system president to execute the contract amendments after the agreements are finalized among the agents, athletic staff, and legal Those are the three items I have, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, sir. All of these agenda items have been reviewed by staff and are recommended for approval. Of course, if any member has a question or wishes to discuss any of these items, please let me know now. Are there any questions or comments by the board? Any comments from the public? If no one requires any further clarification of these consent agenda items, may I have a motion and a second for approval of items F1 to F3?
So moved.
Ms. Egan moves, second by Ms. Lola. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Do we have any other business at this time? If not, this concludes the business of the athletic committee. Do we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. At this time, Mr. Perkins will address items under the Facilities Planning Committee.
We have 4 items on the Facilities and Planning Committee that are all consent agenda items. Mr. Janae will provide an overview of the consent items by campus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perkins. Item G1 is from McNeese. Approval to enter into a land lease with the Laboring Revocable Trust. This trust owns approximately 80 acres of pasture land that's located approximately a mile from the foundation's Fuller Farm property. Over the past several years, Fuller Farm has experienced unfavorable weather conditions. This lease of additional acres would be a valuable resource for providing more space and additional nutrients to the animals. Item G2 is from McNeese as well. Approval to enter into a land lease with the McNeese State University Foundation. The McNeese football scoreboard is past its useful life, and the school board has proven to be unreliable during football games. So McNeese needs to replace the school board in time for their 2020 football season.
It's been unreliable for a long time. Daryl knows what I mean.
So anyway, they want to try to get this done for the 2020 football season. And so the university has entered into discussions with the McNeese Foundation and Lamar Advertising to achieve this goal. Lamar would like to lease 3 small parcels of McNeese land to locate 3 of its billboards, 2 of which would be digital. And this lease would allow for the 2 already existing billboards located at the athletic complex to continue to be used by Lamar, and then for a new billboard that's to be constructed by them at McNeese's recreational complex field. And as a result of these transactions, Lamar will pay $400,000 to the foundation, who in turn will use these funds to construct and install a new electronic scoreboard at the McNeese football stadium. Item G3 is from University within Lafayette, requesting approval to demolish the Bo Swallow home facility. This was a student build project back in 2009, and it was used to enter into the 2009 solar decathlon. And it's been put on display at the university, but it is in deplorable condition and has been infested with termites. Finally, item G4, University of Wisdom Monroe, approval to enter into a granted facility lease agreement with ULM Facilities, Inc. to construct a new student dining facility where Garrett Hall used to be located. This location sits in the heart of the university's academic activities and makes it a perfect site for a new student dining facility. ULM Facilities, Inc. anticipates that the total actual funding for the construction will be approximately $11 million, but it will be financed with self-generated funds. And those are the 4 items I have, Mr. Perkins.
All of these agenda items have been reviewed by the staff and are recommended for approval. Of course, if any member has a question or wishes to discuss any of these items, please let me know. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? If no one requires further clarification of the consent agenda items, may I have a motion and a second for approval of items G1 through G4? Moved by Ms. Pierre, second by Mr. Murphy. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Do we have any other business at this time? If not, that concludes the business of the Facility and Planning Committee. The next committee is Finance.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Mr. Kitchen will address items for finance.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Finance Committee has four consent items on the finance agenda. If there are any questions or discussion items, please let me know. Edwin Whittle will walk us through an overview of each item.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the first item is item H1. It's Grambling State University is requesting approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Bossier Parish Community College to provide higher education opportunities to the citizens of North Louisiana. Bossier Parish Community College employees must hold certain credentials in order for SACS accreditation. Bossier Parish Community College employees meeting the eligibility requirements may participate and register for up to 6 credit hours per term in undergraduate courses at a rate of $25 per credit hour, or up to 6 credit hours per term in graduate courses at a rate of $50 per credit hour. Item H2 is the University of Louisiana Lafayette's request to establish the following endowed super graduate student scholarships: the Fannie Edith Wynn Educational Trust in Energy Science. Item H3 is the University of Louisiana Monroe's request for approval to seek matching funds from the Louisiana Board of Regents for 4 endowed superior graduate student scholarships: the Bill and Marcia Byrne in Pharmacy, Louisiana Independent Pharmacy in Pharmacy, and the Lawrence Alden and Elizabeth Ann Robinson in Healthcare Education, and the Michael C. Ecoles Endowment in the MBA program. And Bruce has also done internal audit.
Thank you. Item H4, University of Louisiana Systems request on, report on internal and external audit activities since our last board meeting. Within your board folder is a list of internal and external audits that have been completed by various auditors since the last board meeting. Also included within your package is audits that are currently in progress, and also a timetable on follow-up audits to ensure that management's corrective action stated in the original report is followed upon to make sure corrective action was taken. This is a report only, and no action by the board is necessary.
Any questions, comments from the board? Any comments from the public? May I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent items? Christine Russell moved, and Joe Salter, excuse me, seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We also have 3 items on the finance agenda today. Edwin, please introduce each.
Item H5 is the University of Louisiana Monroe's request for approval to establish the Kim Sledge Endowed Chair in Risk Management and Insurance. This is a request that's going to go to the Board of Regents. It's $600,000 that the institution gets in a donation, and it's matched with $400,000 from the Board of Regents for a $1 million chair in insurance. This is a pretty special chair that they've gotten, and I'd like to invite Dr. Bruno to the table and give you a little overview of the chair.
Thank you, Edwin. Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is a very special chair, and we're very proud to present this before you. This was through a gift by the Louisiana Department of Insurance of about $568,000, which we added additional private funds to, in the name of Ms. Sledge, who was a member and an employee of the Department of Insurance for many years. The risk management and insurance program at ULM, due to 300% growth in enrollment, is now considered the 9th largest in the nation. Risk management insurance employs approximately 2.7 million people. Its unemployment rate in that industry is 1.7%. We specialize at ULM in 2 areas. reinsurance, and surplus lines. And, as I become a little more familiar with it, by no means, as knowledgeable as Mr. Romero is, but, reinsurance is interesting because you insure your insurance. So is that right, Mr. Romero?
Yes, sir.
I hadn't quite figured that out yet, but it seems like you got a perpetual business going.
It's called frictional costs.
That's it. And then, of course, surplus lines, and Louisiana is one of the largest users of surplus lines because of the nature of oil and gas, agriculture, chemical, hazardous materials, et cetera. Mardi Gras is surplus lines. We have some amazing private partners, including AmWinds, All Risks, and CRC. And these companies have traditionally been offering our students employment at the junior status. We're very excited about it. One of the key things that makes this very attractive is that it is estimated that 50% of the professionals in that industry will retire in the next 5 years. So the need for these students is great. We're excited to be able to produce the quality of students that the industry wants, and ask that you concur with this request. Any questions?
I'd like to offer a comment. Dr. Bruno, I think you have a tremendous leader in Dr. Christine Berry. She's truly recognized across the country. I know that she's a current member of our Management Leadership Institute, and we'll continue to see really good things from her. Her connection with students builds an alumni base. I think that'll hopefully continue to bring good, profitable returns to you all, and I think it's going to foster good relations throughout our industry. I really have had the opportunity to meet and get to know her and have a lot of respect and know that she's going to be a positive influence in the future there.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. We agree with you.
The Board of Regents chairs are competitive. So the University of Louisiana Monroe has submitted their application to the Board of Regents. They have outside reviewers to review them, and then they will rank them. And so we won't know for a couple of months before if the University of Louisiana Monroe will get the matching $400,000 for the chair.
Nick, thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other questions, comments from the board? Yeah, Mr. Clark.
The match was 400. What was the principal amount of the?
600,000. The donation is 600,000 with a match of 400,000 for $1 million chair.
I thought they had gone to 80-20 on that. Is that, am I?
That's for the professorships. So
Oh,
the
just for
professorships went to the 80-20, correct?
Okay, but the endowed chairs are still 60-40.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any comments from the public? May I have a motion and a second for approval of item H5?
So moved.
Yeah, Mr. Egan moved. Second? Sean?
Yes, sir.
Seconded. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item H6 is the University of Louisiana System's request for approval to approve fees pursuant to Act 293 of the 2017 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature. The first item that we have is the Louisiana Tech University is contemplating an increase of the existing student center fee by $150 per quarter for full-time students effective in the spring quarter 2020. Dr. Geis is here with a number of members of his leadership team to present this item.
Good afternoon, Chairman Kitchens and members of the board. We are here to ask for permission to increase this existing student center fee using the Act 293. I have with me today the president of our Student Government Association and also a senior industrial engineer, Abby Olson. And I have my associate vice president for student advancement, Dickie Crawford, and Lisa Cole, our chief financial officer, is here also to answer any questions. You know, we've spent a lot of time over the past decade doing strategic planning, and when I came in as president in 2013, we developed a campus master plan. And the things that we're talking about in those plans are all leading towards advancing our institution with a real focus on student success. We recognize that a critical part of our plans were to reinforce the core of our campus. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we've begun to do that. We put new residential units in the core of our campus so our students can get engaged and immersed. If we can get them there on campus, get them connected, we know they'll be successful or have the greatest opportunity for success. And so a lot of the efforts that we've undertaken to this date have been to enhance residential and food services in the core. Right now, our student center that we have is a 1960s student center that is very uninviting, very unsupportive of the types of services that we need to be able to provide our students. And so what this fee is going to allow us to do is to plan, design, construct, and operate a cluster of student services facilities right in the center of our campus. This will include a campus commons. It'll include food services, other gathering spaces, study spaces, and then access to information repositories and technology. It'll be a one-stop shop for information. When students come to our campus, when prospective students come, there'll be this one place as opposed to it being distributed all across our campus right now that we'll be able to locate there. It'll be student support services for more diverse populations. We know we have to increase the diversity, and we've already begun to move more of our multicultural fair activities right into this core, but it's not adequate space, and we know that we have to enhance that space. And a lot of this will be focused all on safety, on accessibility, and supporting disability services. The two recent events that really caused us to bring this forward at this particular point. One is obviously the tornado that hit our campus on April the 25th, and we are making progress in that recovery, and we know that that's going to take us a while. But as a part of the investments that are going to be made in that recovery, we will be able to leverage those investments from state, federal, and other resources to enhance things that will enhance this project, like some of the accessibility and campus lighting. The second big thing is this is our 125th year celebration. And we initiated a capital campaign, and we were pleased to announce recently that we've been successful in raising $125 million as a part of that campaign to achieve this goal. But we're still raising money. We're not to the end of this campaign. And we're out asking people to come back and invest in our campus. And so having this student project that's going to be initiated, we already know that we're going to be able to bring additional revenue in to expand all of this and to really build what is our vision for the 125th year of 21st century campus. And that's our focus. So at this point, I'd like to ask Dr. Crawford to make additional comments.
Also, I want to thank y'all for allowing us to come before y'all and to kind of let you know about our vision for Louisiana Tech University. As Dr. Geis mentioned, this fee is going to be centered around the core of our campus and improving the core of our campus. Our students know, and us as administrators know, our core of our campus needs a lot of addressing. The big reason we want to do this, as Dr. Geis mentioned, is to be in step with the vision of this board, which is to recruit and retain and ultimately graduate a diverse student body. And for us to be able to be successful in doing that, we're going to have to provide high-quality services that these students demand to be successful, and they need to be successful. Those services, as Dr. Geis mentioned, are going to be, for example, including around students with disabilities need services there, and students that need services for mental health reasons. And so, as many of our universities know, many of our students, more and more of them are coming to our campuses with needs surrounding mental health. And so we need to continue to stay on top of that and continue to provide those services for them. And so we're trying to do that, and we want to bring them to the core of our campus. And the we also know that the core of our campus needs to continue to be addressed as far as accessibility issues for students with disabilities. And so bringing those students to our campus and being able to bring them there for the services they need in a safe way, this is important for us. In addition to that, we want to be able to utilize this fee with the upcoming renewal of our food service contract and our bookstore contract. This can provide additional financial resources for the core of our campus. In addition to those resources, we feel pretty strongly we're going to be able to work with alumni and be able to get alumni donations for this as well. So to combine all those resources to be able to provide the type of environment, the type of facilities, the type of services that are going to help us to attract the students that provide a diverse student body, be able to retain those students, and to be able to graduate those students. I'd like to ask our SGA President, Abby Olson, to say a few words from the student perspective. Besides what Dr. Geis mentioned about her being an engineering major, I want to brag on Abby a little bit more too, is that she was also an orientation student leader for us. She also has worked for us in residential life as an RA. So Abby has a great sense of the student voice of our campus. She's a leader in our campus. We're very fortunate to have her. She's a tremendous advocate for our students and has been great for us to work with. And so I'll ask Abby to say a few words.
Thank you. One thing our administration is very attuned to and aware of with this fee increase is the student opinion. And that has been very evident in how they've handled this whole situation. So personally, I've met with them a number of times just to talk this whole process out. And then they came to our SGA meetings and we discussed it at length with the whole entire SGA on what everyone's opinions would be with this increase. And then in addition to that, we met by ourselves and discussed it without the administration just so we could get everything out and clear the air. And at the end of that meeting, we were able to come to a decision that we all agreed with and a process to get this fee to both meet the administration and the student goals with this. And we were able to draft a resolution that was passed unanimously, but even more than that, we drafted it as an SGA as a whole, which is kind of historic for our SGA. We've never done something like that before. So it's very interesting to see how everyone's opinions could come together and really just agree that this is the best course of action to take with our campus. And with administration, it's not stopping just with this resolution. They are going to continue to partner with us to make sure all of our students know what this fee is for, how it's going to be used, and how it will affect their rates with what they're paying for at Louisiana Tech. And in addition, as a student, if you're paying for something new, you want to see something right now. You want to see it happen, which doesn't normally happen with big projects like this, but our administration is letting that happen with this project. We are going to be constructing 125th commemorative monument that our students and our SGA have 100% say in with our architects. So it's something the students get to make with our money, and we get to see it on our campus forever. So in addition to completely changing the campus core, we get to leave our mark in a very different way that we haven't been able to do before. So from the students, we unanimously agree that this is what Louisiana Tech needs, and we approve it.
So thank you, Abby. It's been really special working with our students on this. They look at this as a way to pay forward. They know that they have benefited through the paying forward that previous Student Government Association projects have brought, and so we're real proud of them and thank them for their support. This time we'll be glad to answer any questions from the board.
Dr. Geis, I have a couple questions. The amount of the current student center fee is what, that is to be renewed? 113 per quarter, so you're more than doubling the fee. Was that first fee of $113, was that voted upon by the student body or just by the Student Government Association?
The current fee began in 1959.
Okay.
And so it's been increased several times over the years. It is not a student self-assessed fee.
It's not.
University assessed fee.
Okay, all right. I for some reason I was under the impression that it was a student assessed fee, but it's not. Okay, all right, very good. That helps me. I would just be very reluctant to support a significant fee, and we're talking $450 a year. That if it had been student assessed, I would, ask why this was not. I really respect Abby, you being here. I think that Dr. Geis indicated that you were you had a great sense of the student voice, and I appreciate that. Certainly appreciate the fact that you come from residence life and student orientation, student affairs background. I commend you for your service to your institution, and certainly having a core building and a set of services that were described certainly can make a world of difference for that aspect of your campus life situation. So I commend you for it.
We've also included in your handout the expected revenue and expenses. It's going to be an expected revenue of $1.2 million for the spring semester, and then $3.8 million for each year after that, and a list of the expenses there. This increase will be a 4.7% increase for the tuition, but it'll still keep them under the SREB average of their peers for their tuition rate.
Edwin, you want to handle the next one?
Yes, sir.
Any
You want to vote on these as a total?
I would do it in total of one time after we consider all of the fees.
We voted on the first one, didn't we?
And I just have a question. The statement says they're contemplating, but you're actually proposing that and asking us to vote on it today, not just contemplating this issue. Okay.
Correct.
The next item is
Can I request that we vote on each one individually?
You want to vote on each one independent?
Yeah, I feel better about that.
That's fine. Then, any other questions or comments from the board or the public? May I have a motion and a second for approval of the Louisiana Tech fee?
So moved.
Sean? Mimi, seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt just 1 second and add my commendation to Abby Olson. I got the chance to visit with Abby at length this summer during a conversation about President Geis, and I was stunned. And much like Rachel Laudiger, our SGA president from Mill Lafayette, they represent students at such an extraordinary level. I think back to my college days and wonder how deficient I was in my student voice. This is our future. And if you are ever get pessimistic about what our future holds, just look at Abby, look at Rachel, and have great confidence that we're going to be just fine, because they are remarkable leaders, not just student leaders, remarkable leaders in their own right. So Abby, welcome to Baton Rouge, and it's a delight to have you at our meeting.
Great job, Abby.
Thank you.
Our next item is from the University of Louisiana Monroe, is requesting for an increase of the facilities enhancement fee from $10 to $13 per credit hour with no cap. The increase will provide needed funds for repair, renovate, acquire, and construct facilities to expand the mission of ULM. The increase will be effective in the fall of 2020. This increase would be $72 a year for a full-time student, less than a 1% increase. The estimate generation is about a little over $500,000 a year. We have a breakdown of the revenue and expenses in your handout, and Dr. Bruno and Bill Graves are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Bruno, you want to come forward to the table?
This fee is in addition to an existing fee that's been in place for approximately 2 years, in which we've used it for facility upgrades and acquiring property for the university's expansion. So we have talked to students about this fee. Student government has actually sent an endorsement of this. And this fee will only go into effect in the fall if the contract we're currently negotiating is implemented. So if between now and February we expect to come back with a contract with a vendor and a partner. If that is successful, then we will assess the fee. If it's not successful, we will not. Any other questions?
Okay. Any other comments, questions? from the
So,
board?
Dr. Bruno, this fee will not take place until the fall?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of the ULM fee?
So moved.
Sean moved, Jeff Salter seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I have at the appropriate time, I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask about the act itself, utilization of it. So at the appropriate time, if you'd recognize me to ask those questions, whenever that is.
Sure.
Our last one is the excess credit hour fee, and this is a requesting authority to approve an excess credit hour charge not to exceed $150 per credit hour for credit hours that are 16 hours or more for undergraduate and graduate students. The excess credit hour charge will be calculated based upon the current general fee charges and any other additional HB 152 fees charged in excess of the full-time rate. We're asking that the Board of Supervisors authorize the University of Louisiana System President to approve, per institution, the excess credit hour charge based upon an analysis of the current fees in the excess of the full-time rate. We're also going to exclude certain extracurricular courses such as honor seminars, leadership seminars, usually those one-hour courses that are mandated, not necessarily tied to their academic degree program.
Any questions or comments from the board with regard to the fee? Mr. Clark?
I have a number of questions, and I apologize for trying to fully understand this one. First of all, the institutions that we are authorizing or will be authorizing, how many currently have this in place?
Right now, Nicholls State University, years ago when we were under GRAD Act, was able to do an excess credit hour fee of 16 and above, similar to this. So they're the only ones that have a specific excess credit hour fee above 416 and more. Now, what had happened with a lot of the other institutions is as we started with the general fees, they implemented a general fee increase with no cap. So it went on beyond 12 hours. So at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, they have an auxiliary and general fee, and it's an uncapped amount, and so that amount goes up each time, each credit hour. So UL Lafayette has that excess credit hour. The University of New Orleans has a few fees, like their privateer fee and some of the other fees that have a small amount that goes up as an excess credit hour. So what's happened is as we've had this general fee and things have changed with that process, you're going to see a lot of variation by each institution on the different fees and the different amounts per credit hour. And that was one of the reasons why we've kind of put this in a scenario that we're going to analyze each one to see how much capacity they have. Now, for example, Grambling, Northwestern, and Southeastern have no fees that increase above the 12 hours. So those three particular institutions could come in and could get the full $150 amount because they have no increase in any of those general fees above 15 or 16 hours. Some of the other schools have some, but they wouldn't be able to get the full 150 amount.
So all schools except for Nicholls could fall under this? Is that what I'm?
No, sir. A few schools have already exceeded. So what basically
okay.
this will do is say, after 15 hours, if you take another course, it would cost you $450 more for that one course. Some schools have already exceeded that amount, so they would not be eligible for this under that.
Right, that's what I'm trying to determine exactly. Which schools do we anticipate that would be coming forth to the system president to approve?
So
this?
we've had three, when we started this process, that were interested in that. Particularly, we had Northwestern, Southeastern, and UNO. I think we have some others that are interested in it. We have a few. Nicholls, as part of their initial discussion, they were going to actually reduce their excess credit hour rate for the 16 and above to come more in line with this with the other institutions. But at this point, I would say that Nichols would not be, have the capacity. The University of Louisiana Lafayette would not have the capacity.
I'm concerned, of course, because when you're talking $150, credit hour, you're talking $450 a course, suddenly the dollars add up, and certainly I think we have all been in favor of time to degree enhancement for a whole host of reasons, for the consumer's perspective, and certainly from the state's perspective, getting students through quicker. Do we have any understanding of how this policy has affected the student behavior at Nichols, for instance? Do we have data that shows, have we decreased the numbers who are taking more classes? Has it altered in any way, shape, or form how students operate?
Yes, sir. When Nichols went into and started that, my initial thought was, I thought it was going to impact those credit hours for that student that was debating, because part of the discussion too was, you have a lot of students will take 18 hours, and then they'll wait to see which course they don't like, and they'll drop it, knowing that they're not going to complete the 18 hours because there was not a cost associated with that. So that has happened, and I think what I was thinking.
But do we have data? I guess is what I'm saying is, do we have a percent? Do we know at the time prior to, do we have a baseline for in advance of the increase 16 and above? How many students were taking more than 16? I mean, was it 50% of the student body, 25% of the student body, something like that? And then once you implement a fee like this, does it decrease the number because of the, not causality may not be able to be proven, but in terms of, do we have a sense how this might impact students going forward?
So when Nichols implemented it for the next 3 years, we went and looked at the the number of credit hours taken at 16, 17, and 18 hours, and did not see a drop-off in that at all. In fact, in some cases, saw an increase in the number of credit hours.
And how many years is that? You said that was the first year. How many years have we been doing that?
We did that for about 3 years after their fee increased to see the difference that would do. And we did not see a change in the Nichols credit hour rate.
Did we disaggregate that data? I'm concerned that anytime you increase fees, that there's likely to be a disproportionate effect on Pell-eligible students, persons from lower income. Do we look at that? Have we analyzed that? Tried to?
We surely can.
Supervisor Clark, I will tell you that as a component to all of these fees, there's a percentage of those fees that has to be directed to Pell-eligible and lower income students, and that's been associated with all HB 152.
And I'd really like to see how that is done campus by campus, on these different fees.
Sure.
I mean, again, I just, we talk about increasing fees on these students, and it does make a difference. We heard a presentation this morning, a wonderful one on adult learners, and I was struck by the fact that affordability and cost matters. It's why people are not enrolling or not doing it. And I would suspect when we get to the point of 16 or above, and we're trying to get these students through for the right reasons, that a $450 extra expense on a Pell student is going to impact, because Pell is limited. It's got to come from somewhere. So those who have means, those who have incomes or parents who can afford it, that's maybe fine, and maybe I don't have a problem. At the same time, I'm not certain that it's the right thing to be advocating for overall, unless we have data that shows otherwise, and we may have it, and it's great. And that's, I guess, what I'm asking for, is that as we move forward with policies like this, that we are using data to truly understand who is being impacted and affected, and are we altering behavior in a way that we didn't expect or intend. Look, I'm all about funding the universities. I understand that people are strapped. I understand we've got to be creative, and I'm hopeful that Governor Edwards is going to come through with some significant dollars here over the next 4 years. But as we think through policies, I don't think we sometimes understand. That's why I'm just asking if there has been any studies, or have there been any data analysis on the potential impact or the actual impact in places where we've already had that occur. And that's I guess what I'm asking. And separate or similar, do we have a sense how other institutions in the state operate outside of our system, how many charge excess hours. Is that a culturally acceptable phenomenon in Louisiana, and or then neighboring states or ASCU schools and so on? I'm just curious as to how much do we have that? Did we investigate that?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that all of LCTCS went to that model 5 years ago when they did a per credit hour charge across for all the curriculum. And that was their reasoning behind that was the marginal cost associated with delivering more hours, that there is a cost associated with it. And this was their rationale, was that there was student behavior where they would register for an excess amount of hours so that they would have cushion to drop a course in which they weren't performing.
Well,
right?
you know, LCTCS is now one of the highest tuition in the country, and I think that their enrollment is down right now. So I'm not sure.
I'm not using it as an example. I was just answering the question about which ones have done it.
I'm not sure that's a good example to support us, moving forward.
We've had some institutions that have done it at 13, and to be honest, I've always been one that questioned whether that's the right approach at 13. At 16 hours, you are then incurring significant marginal cost, but it's also much lower population, smaller population of students. And it is a discount per credit hour from what they were taking from 0 to 12, or even 0 to 15.
Does the Southern system or the LSU system?
Yes, they both
do.
All the campuses. And I will tell you, my daughter attended a private school in Texas, and they moved to that model as well. So you've seen it throughout the private sector.
Well, again, private schools. I'm
just giving the examples of those that you asked for that are doing it, right? And a number of the public institutions in the state of Texas have done it all the way up, even starting at hour 13. What we have done is, 15 hours per semester in 8 semesters gets you 120 credit hour bachelor's degree. And so we have protected those students that are on the 4-year, 15 to complete. But there is an operational impact on the institution. And even the student behavior that comes into play when a student might register for an excess number of hours. And Supervisor Laudiger was explaining how even students sometimes that might be at a higher priority to register will register for a class for a friend to hold that class until the time that student can register. Then they can drop that class, the student can immediately go. So there's some student behaviors that are involved with that. This is not a student behavioral issue, right? It's an operational issue, but it does have an impact. I think what we're doing is protecting those full-time students. We're protecting those full-time students that are taking programs that add to the experience, like leadership, like honors. And at the same time, we're being cognizant of the operational impact on the institutions. And I believe that this is the best practice in terms of balancing those two issues.
And I would say that from the HB 152 fees, 5% of that is going to need-based aid, and we're projected to give out over $4 million in need-based aid this year. So my hope would be that if we do end up with a situation where a student is on Pell or need-based and does have that $450, I think there's a commitment from the institutions to be able to provide this aid in order to do that for those students.
And I appreciate that, and I certainly hope that we have in place the capacity or the data, the data to really see are the dollars going to those, and how many, and is it an even ratio? A couple of things you mentioned the exceptions or excluding certain things, and it's listed here: honor seminars, leadership seminars, etc. Will there be a list of those at some point, a full list of all those before?
So any school that is proposing this will have to bring that forward to us and for our analysis and approval.
Okay.
Yes.
And I want to thank Mr. Kitchen for his work in calling the committee together to really discuss through this. And certainly from what I had heard was a potential, and that was above 12. To have limited it to the above 15, I'm very grateful to that, and I think the students probably are too. So I thank you for that.
Dr. Clark, we appreciate your comments. I believe that they are consistent with the concerns that the entire board has with regard to affordability issues for higher education. We have discussed this on previous occasions, and I believe that while we have approved fee increases, I think we've done so reluctantly, but out of necessity. with regard to providing the value of a higher education for all of our students. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to
Excuse me,
our student
Mr.
representative
Kitchens.
from the board, who I think
Mr. Kitchens.
has been a very articulate voice on behalf of the students with regard to this whole issue of fees. Rachel?
Thank you. And as Dr. Henderson mentioned, I am one of these students that I think my average class hours that I've taken every semester in my 7 and going on 8 semesters at UL has been about 17. I, of course, am pursuing a 120-hour major as my primary major. I came in with 42 hours of dual enrollment from high school, so that drops me down to 78, but I added an extra minor and an extra major and came out to 126, which divided by 8 semesters is 15.75. So only a couple of semesters under this proposal would I have maybe had to pay an extra fee. And I will speak personally that the classes that I've taken that pushed me over that 16-hour mark were my honor seminars and were extracurriculars like speech and debate that I took that put me at 19 hours or 17 hours, so on and so forth. I'd like to make 2 commendations, especially after having attended the Finance Committee meeting last Tuesday. First, that the cutoff point is at 16 hours and not 13, because as Dr. Henderson stated, and as we all know, regardless of anything extra that you pursue, it is impossible to get a 120-hour degree taking the minimum full-time classes per semester in 8 semesters in 4 years. And second, for exempting those particular programs like the leadership seminars, the honors seminars, and I look forward to reviewing which of those classes are included, like orientation students usually take a class that goes with that involvement. Speech and debate takes a class that goes with that involvement. And all of those are what enrich our universities and what enrich our student involvements, and we don't want to punish them for that. While I am on principle usually against levying more fees on students, I do understand the behaviors that inspired this desire for an excess credit hour fee. And based on my own experience and the experience of my peers, I don't believe that if things are done the way that they're supposed to be, that this will negatively impact them, even those who do decide to pursue extra majors or extra minors. My only request is that for those students who fall into that outlier category of I'm doing everything right, I'm not registering for a class for my friend, I really just want to graduate, a year early, or I want to get this extra major, I want to pursue this extra program, and maybe it doesn't count as one of those classes that would be exempted, that money be reinvested into some of the systemic problems that cause the student behaviors that induce this fee, like only having one section of one course that's required for graduation in a program per semester with only 25 spots. Or maybe some more detailed class descriptions, ways for students to know which class they want to take, which class is better for them, so that they don't register for 18 hours knowing that they're going to drop down to 15. But no, I do commend the committee and for this revision and for those inclusions. And again, my only request is reinvestment into the faculty and better classes for the students that do register for them.
Mr. Kitchens?
Yes, Ms. Bowler.
The only concern I have, or one of the concerns that I have, is on the surface, this appears that we're penalizing students that take the initiative to take a larger class load. Maybe they have a reason for wanting to graduate in 3 years. I took a minimum of 18 hours and often got permission to take 21. I don't know. I understand from the university's standpoint why these fees, but it almost seems like we should be doing the opposite. If you are willing to take more classes and you're willing to graduate in a timely or maybe a speeded up time, you should be given, some priorities and maybe some incentives to do that. I don't know. I just don't want to punish many of the students that don't have these ulterior motives for registering with these excess classes, for discouraging them from taking, these extra classes so they can graduate in not just in a timely fashion, but maybe in an accelerated fashion. So that's my comment on it.
Well, I mean, 2 points I think are important, you know, here. One is that any fees that are assessed should have a clear explanation of what they're going to be used for. And, you know, to the extent that we're not just going to be approving fees for the sake of fees, we're going to be approving fees that are going to accomplish some desirable goal for the student, something that has what I call value for the student. And I would think that too, that there is, maybe you could offer some clarification on this, Edwin. The second point is that there's a window that will close shortly with regard to any new fees. And maybe you could offer a comment for the benefit of the board.
Correct, and I think that goes to what Mr. Salter was saying. The legislation expires on June 30th, 2020. So the window of opportunity to use this fee expires in June. So that's part of the concern that's coming up, is that the institutions know there's a limited window, a limited opportunity, and we see that there's going to be a reinvestment into higher education. The question is how much and how soon. So the concern is that when June 30th comes around, we will no longer have that opportunity, and we would have to find some avenue or some way to get a 2/3 legislative vote in order to do anything beyond June 30th.
Well, this time next year, the discussion will probably be different if nothing changes with regard to fees and revenues for us to support the universities. Any further comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Salter, did that answer your question?
No, I have other questions, but we dispose of this item, and then I just have a couple of questions about 293.
Excuse me, I didn't hear.
I say we go ahead and take action on this item. My questions have to do with 293, the implementation, and we can, after that, if you'd recognize me for a couple of questions.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
With regard to this excess credit hour fee, are there any more comments from the board, questions? Any comments from the public? May I have a motion and a second for approval? Christine Russell, motion moved. Seconded by Mimi. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Let the record reflect that there was one nay. The motion passes. Mr. Salter, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm relatively new here, and I won't use that crutch many times because it wouldn't be appropriate probably much longer to use that crutch, but I'm going to use it now. I have a couple of questions about 293. One is, and I understand that when we talk about increasing costs, we've got to be concerned about that. And then I understand that the institution needs to make their case that it's warranted. That's in their interest when we have to take a vote. I guess my question is, were other institutions, for example, I'm surprised we only had 2 that would ask to take advantage of this today. And now why would other institutions not be on the agenda? And my question came up when I got this yesterday, I guess, and I looked and I said, well, my goodness, everybody's got need for money and this, that, and the other. So that's one question.
And I think to that end, over the last couple of years, we have come forward with a number of HB 152 Act 293 fees. Some institutions have gone up more than others. I think their institutions are reaching that point to where there's not a lot of capacity left. We have 4 or 5 institutions that are above the SREB average in tuition. So I think there's a concern now from the institutions that I really can't go up much anymore. We're at that capacity. There's a concern that at some point I'm going to start to see a loss in students because of that. And I think there's also a look at, there's hope that this legislative session that we're going to get some additional state dollars to go for that. And I think that there's an interest to wait and see what's going to happen before we do come in with the student fees.
Then the other question, has this been utilized before, or is this the first time that this act has been utilized by any of our institutions?
No, sir. After GRAD Act expired, this was put in by Representative Broadwater, and it was the General Fee Authority. I think it was initially it was a 2-year. It was brought up and expanded for another 2 years. So that does expire June 30th, and we have used it every year since its inception.
Have all institutions used it at least once during that period since it's been reauthorized or whatever?
I would say except for once or twice each year, every institution used it. Now, like last year, Nichols did not, Grambling did not, but for the most part, every year we would have 9 institutions included in that process.
And then my other concern, I guess, would be that if they elected, for whatever reason, not to participate in during this window of opportunity here, is there any way for them to ever make that up?
Not without legislation.
That's not good. Thank you.
Okay. I do want to say thank you to the board for this debate and discussion, because it is an extremely important issue with regard to providing an affordable higher education opportunity for these students in our state. So thank you very much. Again, Mr. Wendt will review the third quarter financial reports. Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Kitchen, members of the board, Mr. Romero. I'll be brief. We've recently finished our analysis of the first quarter's budgetary performance. Our revenues are down for the first quarter, and that has resulted from a decrease in enrollment. Tuition and fees were down $3.9 million. We had some other revenues that were up about $149,000. Our expenses are up $7.9 million, and that is coming in large part from salaries and related benefits. Salaries were up about 2.6%, and the related benefits were up 2%. We also had increases in operating services of $3.9 million. In athletics, we are monitoring our universities that are projecting shortfalls in their athletic revenues and athletic revenues as opposed to expenses, or increases in expenses, to ensure that the projections that they're providing to us accurately reflect their conditions, and that they have action plans in place to address any shortfalls. We're also going to, on an ongoing basis, we are reviewing and analyzing their quarterly performance, and we will request any plans of action from them if any situations indicate that those projections are not going to be inaccurate, and we'll also ask them to provide that to us as well. On to our financial statements. The system's financial statements are currently being audited by the legislative auditor. They have my second final draft to them, and they're working on that. Hopefully we'll be exiting within the next couple of weeks, which is a little earlier than last year, so that's a good thing. And we also, on November 19th, had our finance committee meeting, and we provided a broad summary of our financial performance. And as it relates to the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019, on a full accrual basis, our net position increased $28.5 million rounded. So if anyone has any questions.
I've got a couple of questions, Charles.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that based on the financial performance to date, that the variances are consistent with what you expected in relation to the budget?
By and large, yes, sir. On the athletic side, we saw some differences, and we got some explanations on those, and those were related primarily to timing.
And any variances that were more than immaterial, you put into place some corrective action to get that spending in line?
We're addressing those, reviewing those to ensure that they do have procedures in place or actions in place to address those shortfalls. In the long run, the projections relative to the budget are that we will come in
Well, that brings up my final question, which is, based on the first quarter, which I realize is only 25% of the year, you expect that the financial performance of the system will be consistent with the budget?
On a budgetary basis, yes, sir. And keeping in mind, too, that because of the cyclical nature of the revenue collection period versus your expenses or expenditures, we have at least 2 quarters a year where we have deficits. And I lose that term loosely. Because of the timing of the expenses are consistent.
Correct, but
revenues are
it is expected because based on past history, that's how it happens.
Right,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Mr. Kitchens?
Yep.
I'm concerned about this drop in enrollment. Do we have any data or anything that perhaps indicates that maybe we've crossed the line on these fees for students? Are we just pricing education out of their reach? I'm very concerned about this, and I don't know how you would collect that data or who would be responsible for doing it, but I'm anxious to know what are the factors for this causing this student decrease?
I think from the standpoint of the institutions, I don't think there's anything that's more focused than the enrollment. And I think a number of the institutions have gotten third-party entities to come in and take a look at their enrollment process and enrollment patterns, looking at ways that what are the markets that they're not collecting on or achieving. So I think there's a heightened sense on the enrollment side and looking at that. And I think that's part of the reason why you're not seeing 9 institutions coming forward with tuition plans today.
Okay. Well, I would just like Dr. Henderson to maybe encourage all of our 9 universities to look into this and perhaps pursue some, as Edwin mentioned, some of them were doing, to collect some data about this. If we're truly concerned, and I know we all are, and obviously the governor is, of educating Louisiana students, citizens, and everything, we've got to make this affordable too. So I would request that we ask someone to look into this.
Of course, and listen, I thank you so much for those comments and for this whole conversation, because anytime you're talking about increasing the cost of a student to do what we're asking them to do, you should do it with heavy consideration. I will tell you, our institutions continue to operate with the lowest revenue base per student in the United States. In the southern region, they continue to produce more bachelor's degrees at the lowest cost per degree in the entire southern region. That's nothing new in Louisiana. We've been 16th out of 16 southern states for more than a dozen years, with the exception of 1 year when Supervisor Clark was in the governor's office, and we rose all the way up to 12th. So we've always been resource constrained. I will tell you, I applaud our presidents that not a single general fee increase was brought to this board this year, although they had the authority. We had the authority to do that. I think it shows that they're cognizant about that. I think that the work we're doing with dual enrollment, the largest drop we had in enrollment this year is really dual enrollment because of some changes in eligibility criteria. I'm glad that they're going back and relooking and taking a statewide approach in dual enrollment to expand access. Last year at this time, or 2 years ago, we were fighting a policy change that would have restricted access to more than 8,500 students, eliminated them from the rolls of dual enrollment. We managed to change that policy. We've enacted this new program in Compete, Louisiana, which we have not spent $1 in advertising yet. We continue to work through the processes, eliminating those barriers. We had a great meeting with the presidents today to talk about a levelized tuition per credit hour for Compete Louisiana students that is probably the most market-friendly tuition level we've ever seen, because it eliminates, it doesn't eliminate, but it reduces that cost barrier for students. We talked about eliminating student debt. I think these institutions are focused solely on serving more students at a more cost-effective way and producing more graduates that are prepared for the future. But it's essential that we get the state investment in this work. We can't be competitive for faculty. We can't offer quality programs if the state of Louisiana doesn't decide it's going to prioritize higher education. Our governor has prioritized that by ending the decade-long disinvestment, giving us our first significant reinvestment last year. We heard him today talk about it's one of his highest priorities. We also have to be smart about finding new ways to serve students, right? The traditional model is no longer sufficient. And we've seen demographically the number of traditional students coming out of high schools is going to decrease. We see that nationwide. It's less so in Louisiana, but it is going to happen. If we're not serving students in the blue ocean of the market, students we've neglected to serve, and that means changing processes, changing cultures, and changing service delivery, then we're not going to be successful. So all of those things come into this mismatch. It hinges on the state stepping up and doing more than we've done in the past. We're not relying solely on the state, but that's got to be part of the equation. We're going to carry that message to legislators, and in fact, we'll talk a little bit more later about how we're carrying that message to them. But it's absolutely essential that we make a case for state investment in our system, because it's that investment in our system is an investment in the future. So I hope that's fair.
Well, thank you for the discussion. This item H7 is a report only, does not require a vote. Any other business to come before the committee? Yeah, Mr. Clark. Mr. Crawford.
This is a topic that's a bit esoteric, but I don't want to get deep into it now. But between now and the next board meeting, could we take a look at the issue with the Board of Regents' decision to force the expenditure of endowments over 125% of their corpus?
Yes, sir.
That's going to, please tell me just the year that passed. I don't have that with me.
You know,
Because we're in the third or fourth year of a 5-year window.
2014.
14 is when it passed.
15,
and it's
16,
gonna,
17, 18. Okay, so we're getting close.
we got a couple of years.
To oversimplify, if you have a $10 million endowment that has grown by 50% over a long period of time, you'll be forced. This rule will force the disbursement of 25%, gets you back down to 125. Which if you had 10, you got up to 100. You got up to 15. You have to go back down to 12.5. Okay. In other words, it's going to be a forced dispersion of what they deem as excess capital gains or excess growth, which raises all kinds of tax issues, fiduciary obligation issues. I mean, there's a whole host of problems that come with that. And I mentioned this to Dr. Reed at a gathering a few months ago. She did not seem to be aware of it. It started before her watch.
Correct.
But the time bomb's ticking, and we really need to coordinate with all the other state universities. I happen to serve on the LSU board, the LSU Health Sciences Foundation in Shreveport, and they've got the same rule applies to all the LSU systems. So every endowment in the state that has gains over a corpus of more than 25%, and most of them have been around for a while, is going to have to disgorge all this money into the state, into its schools' budgets, and then it'll be, all that money will be gone. And then they'll be at a much lower level for the next year for the normal spend rate. So it's a big topic. It's complicated. Don't want to get too deep into it now, but I think it's important to get with it on this and to coordinate with some of our other institutions. I'm happy to help you with the Health Sciences Foundation up in Shreveport. Every endowment in the state is going to be affected by this.
I know all the other systems and institutions have a similar concern for
Yeah,
those.
but we got to get going and get moving on this because the time's going to run out quicker than we think. So that's my request.
Okay. Any other business to come before the committee? If not, Mr. Chair, that's all of the items for finance.
Thank you, Mr. Kitchen. At this time, Mr. Robinson will address items to be presented to the Personnel Committee.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call the order of the Personnel Committee. A quorum having already been established. We have 2 items on the Personnel Committee agenda. Edmund, would you provide an overview of each, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First item is I-1, Grambling State University's request for approval to appoint Dr. Connie Walton as Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs effective December 1st, 2019. The second item is item I-2, Louisiana Tech University's request for approval to appoint Mr. Thomas Hoover as Chief Information Officer effective January 1st, 2020.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Is there any further clarification required? There being none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Motion and seconded. Without objection, that item is approved. President Geis, President Gallo, I understand that neither of those individuals are here today. Okay, thank you. If there are any prior period personnel actions that were not recognized and a president would like to do so at this time, and that person is present, feel free to do so at this time. Recognizing none, is there other business to come before this committee? There being none, we stand adjourned. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our business. I yield back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. And thank all of you committee chairs for an efficient process today. Many items covered, and it's glad to see those things concluded. Before we proceed with the President's report, I'd like to take a moment of privilege and really on behalf of all of the board to recognize on the other side of the table a really good friend, great mentor for me, Mr. Winfred Sabille, who's joined us today. And I have to say that it's great to see you, Mr. Wynn. I'm glad that you're in great health. And I also take this time to thank you for continuing to take my phone calls. Dr. Henderson, if you would present your report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, you were emailed copies of the personnel actions for review. You may have noted that Nicholls State University included a 2% increase for faculty and staff, and I appreciate Dr. Clune working hard and Terry Burrow working even harder. You're losing hair, Terry, but thank you for that. Staff has reviewed these personnel actions and recommends approval. We need a motion in the chair, motion in the second, Mr. Chair.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Robinson, second by Mr. Murphy. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're having a UL System holiday open house that we seized an opportunity. You noticed a shift in television ads the past few weeks. We heard at the top of the meeting we're blessed with a governor with a strong commitment to education. We also have several friends returning to service in the legislature with whom we will continue to work to ensure the system is at the top of mind as they make decisions for the state. But we also have about 60 new legislators with whom we have already started sharing our vision and discussing our impact. Next week, we'll host a holiday open house for legislators. We think it's important to ensure our state leaders know our office is always open. Many of them don't even know we have an office in Baton Rouge. They think we're in Lafayette for some reason. Joe, I don't know what that's about. Yes, thank you. We'll send you their mail, too. Well, we think that it's important that they can see that there is a physical office here, and they can understand more about our operation. They can see the operation that is Compete Louisiana. They can understand that this small 16-person staff operates a billion-dollar enterprise and does so quite effectively. So we'll be inviting them here. It happens to be, the date was selected because it's a day they'll all be here in the morning, and they're all expected to be here in the evening for a party. So we're going to catch them between meetings and a party. I look forward to that. You should have received an email invitation. We would love to have you here as well if you're available. The UL System Conference is set for January 30th and 31st at ULM. This is our system's hallmark event, and our member institutions are very, very, very excited to participate. We received nearly 100 proposals from faculty and staff for breakout sessions, which speaks to the breadth of talent throughout our system. We welcome you to attend and participate in the conference, and let Ann McKisson know if you have any questions about that. Last year was in Lafayette, the year before was at Southeastern. Both of those institutions set a high bar that Nick Bruno says he'll have no problem exceeding. And you're going to give us a demonstration of water skiing. No. We do have an item, item J3, consideration of authorization for the system president to execute uniform appointment letters for the campus president. Mr. Chair, I would like to ask for a motion and a second to authorize me as System President to execute uniform appointment letters for the campus presidents. Presidents have been informed that the board may meet in executive session to discuss these personnel matters.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. The Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana System may meet in executive session to discuss personnel matters under the provisions of Louisiana Revised Statute 4217. While in executive session, the board may not take any motions or take any votes. May I have a motion and a second to go into executive session? Moved by Mr. Murphy, seconded by Ms. Pierre. All in favor? Aye. Carol, if you could roll call, I'm sorry.
Dr. Jimmy Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Edward Crawford?
Yes.
Ms. Lola Donahoe?
Yes.
Dr. Pamela Egan?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas Kitchen?
Yes.
Ms. Rachel Lotiger?
Yes.
Ms. Mimi Methvin?
Yes.
Mr. Sean Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Al Perkins?
Yes.
Ms. Elizabeth Pierre?
Yes.
Mr. Virgil Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Mark Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Joe Salter?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right. We'll take a quick environmental break and we'll meet in executive session.
Did anybody mention lunch being on the agenda? Hot lunch on the objective? They used to tell us in the service there was a lie. If I leave, can I leave this right here? But that, I'm not gonna carry, but this,
I'm bringing this to no, to one. I'm one. All right. Put your son up.
everything good? Good. I just want to be here about okay. Gotta make a change to be able to live with it.
There might be some good stuff you say, so you can't fit in the car, is it? The dome wasn't big enough for you, man.
I was just gonna say,
The Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana System met in executive session to discuss personnel matters. While in executive session, no motions were made nor votes taken. Is there a motion to reconvene in open session? Moved by Mr. Murphy, second by Mr. Clark. Dr. Clark? Sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Yes.
carries. At this time, do I have a motion and second to authorize Dr. Henderson, Assistant President, to execute uniform appointment letters for the campus presidents
So moved.
in accordance with the terms per the discussions?
So moved.
Moved by Rachel. Second by Mimi. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. And I certainly thank all of you for your endurance today, and hopefully we'll make it quick. I know some of you have other commitments. We'd like to again thank Dr. Geis and his staff for sponsoring a lovely reception last night. We all had a wonderful time getting together. And I'm surprised Ron's not here to get this message. And enjoying Kix Brooks wine and lots of great food, as well as becoming better acquainted with our campus folks. Ethics training, Bruce, we appreciate you scheduling this morning's live training for ethics. Many of the board members and others satisfied your handle requirements by participating. Those of you that have not, know that you have an obligation to do so, along with preventing sexual harassment training by December 31st of this year. If you have any questions or needs, please feel free to contact Bruce Janet. At this time, we'll have a report on the nominating committee and election of 2020 officers. Each December, the nominating committee meets to discuss its recommendations for officers for the next year. At this time, I'd like to call upon Dr. Perkins, Chair of the nominating committee, to give us the committee report, beginning with the committee's recommendation for chair of the board.
Thank you, Chair Romero. On this morning, we had the nomination committee had an opportunity to meet and discuss candidates for the 2020 year. The nomination committee would like to bring forth a slate of candidates, which are Mark Romero as the chair for 2020 and Mr. James Carter as the vice chair. We did not discuss the parliamentarian due to the fact that that is the chair's decision as to relates to the parliamentarian. At this time, those are the slate of nominations, and ask if there's a motion for, excuse me, a motion to accept those slate of nominations.
So moved.
Second.
I believe they have to be discrete votes, one for chair, vote for vice chair.
Okay. We had a motion by Mr. Murphy and a second by Ms. Donahoe. We have to vote on Mr. Romero first as the chair. All in favor of Mr. Romero as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All in favor. Now to vice chair, all in favor of Mr. Carter as the vice chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are our nominations. I believe that swearing in would be the first meeting in January. Do we have a date yet, Jim?
10th.
January 10th.
January the 10th will be the date for the swearing in. Want to congratulate Mr. Romero for deciding to stay on this Bronco another year. And we appreciate the leadership that you have had during this year. During our nomination committee, there was a lot of discussion about the level of leadership, integrity, and momentum that you have continued on, and that the cohesiveness with the board in making sure to continue to push the board and the system forward in the 9 universities, and the great working relationship you have with Dr. Henderson. So we definitely wish you well, and it is your decision as it relates to your parliamentarian.
Thank you, Al. Members of the committee, I certainly appreciate the members of this board, your confidence in supporting continued service, and I'm very committed and interested in doing so. Really enjoy working with each of you. It's been a true honor to support you as your board chairman this year and work closely with Dr. Henderson and our staff, and I look forward to doing so into 2020. At this time, I'd like to ask Liz Pierre if she would be willing to accept an appointment as our parliamentarian. Thank you, Liz. Thank you. And in the sake of brevity and not causing a certain board member to use favors to arrive at a meeting timely, we'll proceed with the other items. And I'll make my comments on the January meeting. You may recall that in June of 2018, we approved the bylaw that established a self-evaluation process for the board in order to comply with SACSCOC, and that sounds like a new word. A copy of the bylaw is in your folder. As noted in the bylaw, the board is to conduct a self-evaluation of its responsibilities and expectations at least every 2 years. Within the next 2 weeks, you'll receive an assessment via email. I ask that you take the time to complete the evaluation within the allotted time period. Feedback from self-evaluation will be used to create the agenda for the board retreat in February, as well as identify areas where we will focus on 2020. Remember that we have commencements in December. I think it's the pinnacle of our service as board members. And I want to remind each of you that Sandra is taking commitments for those upcoming ceremonies. I encourage you to attend as many as you can and celebrate the accomplishments of our incredible students. Our calendar is also in front of you. You have a copy of the same. Please mark those important dates that are signified on the calendar. Also, please take note that the February meeting will be held on Friday, February the 28th at Northwestern. You'll hear more about this early next year. We also have included the date of March 31st for our ULS Day at the Capitol so you can begin to plan your attendance. That, again, is an incredible event, and I think we continue to raise the bar, and hopefully 2020 will serve to be an advancement over past years. We hope you have a great holiday season, that you get to enjoy some truly great times with your friends and family. Our first meeting of the year will be held in Baton Rouge, and it's going to be our installation of officers on January the 10th. We look forward to getting the year off to a great start at that time. Is there any further business to come before this board at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Liz, second by Jimmy. All in favor? We'll stand adjourned. Thank all of you.